Chapter 47 to 57. Rangaminiad. I said while I directed the spear point towards Ngramenu. I did not throw it towards him or jump in the sky, I simply directed Rangaminiad point towards it. Rangaminiad immediately released my magical energy into an offensive force and unleashed it, by converting my magical energy into light by the dragon factor similar to Excalibur, and at one moment a light holding energy equivalent to my 424,800 OD was released by the spear. In less than half a portion of the second light wave passed through the body of Ngramenu and destroyed it completely and did not stop at that point as the light wave reached the boundaries of the illusion wall and the destructive yaw exploded in a golden light and did not stop because it continued to try to cross the illusion barrier. The boundaries of the illusion barrier began to break and in less than a second the illusion barrier was destroyed and the Rangaminiad attack disappeared with my return to the real world where the region was not suffering any damage. I looked at the spear in my hand. This divine structure is getting stronger every time I use it. The last time against Mephisto had the power of an ordinary anti-fortress rank, but now he is strong enough to destroy a fake dimension less than a second of activating it without boosting it with a Knight of Honor. And while I am not opposed to this, I do not want to destroy my illusion barrier every time I use Rangaminiad. I am also happy, because I can kill opponents before they can only escape to come back stronger. Although I was disappointed as well, when Alea ordered me to kill Ngramenu, I was expecting that he would be much stronger, but it seems she was only worried because with the strong security that the cup gives her, Ngramenu can annihilate humanity. I inserted Rangaminiad into my inventory and used my C-rank clairvoyant to inspect my periphery in order to make sure that no black clay remains, that the entire black clay appears to be either destroyed by envy or by Ngramenu's death. I sighed deeply and started heading towards the cave in which the Greater Grail is stored, while I killed Ngramenu, but I still have to study the cup and fix it and make a procedure after modifications thereof. Corruption was the fault of the Holy Grail itself and not Ngramenu, so from it is possible that the wish-granting functionality is still corrupted. Hey, Alea, can I ask you something? While I was walking toward the cave in moderate steps, I asked Alea. After several seconds of waiting she did not answer me, so I asked anyway. Since Ngramenu was a heroic spirit, will his memories return to the original version within the throne of the heroes? That's right, she said briefly, before falling silently. But he's not a heroic spirit anymore. It's like a flawed imitation of demons. Wouldn't that cause a problem inside the throne of heroes? Although the beast known as all the world's evil is no longer a heroic spirit, but since its essence is merely a copy of a heroic spirit, what bore to the throne of heroes is the memories that he tried without any abilities or skills, although in some cases the copy may affect the true heroic spirit, but these cases are very rare. Alea spoke briefly and quickly. A while ago I discovered that my contract does not exist with all Alea in the timelines, but only with Alea of this world, although my contract will be expanded after I enter the throne of the heroes. That is why I have to be careful, because while Alea will be able to summon me if I am on another planet or in another dimension like the reverse side of the world, my contract will become temporarily cancelled if I go to an alternate timeline or to another universe. Thank you Alea, you are very helpful like always. I told her while I entered the cave entrance. No, I was not licking her ass. It was the reason I knew that the timeline is not divided by every option that any living creature makes, while there are hundreds of thousands of timelines, except that it was made due to interference by someone, or because of some kind of event. The remaining or useless timelines are removed automatically due to the will of the universe, so only prosperous timelines are the ones that remain. And while beings like Alea know that there are different timelines, they cannot interfere with them. I entered the cave and smiled when I saw that the great Holy Grail that had previously had a bloody red light was now shining weakly in a white and golden holy light. While it was comfortable to see this, but I must secure my new treasure first. I was not planning to move the Holy Grail from its place. It was here 200 years ago and no one has tried to steal it before and no one will try now. Instead I decided to keep it here as this cave was built by Justies Lisrich von Einsburn in particular from the Holy Grail Order. I was planning to make several adjustments, but now I have built 3 layers of magical barriers around the cave, setting up a defensive mechanism in the event that an unauthorized person tries to borrow, and I pressed the undead dragon in hibernation to guard the grail. The undead dragon was the undead monster that I made by dragon's bones. While I used Wrath bones as a skeleton, I made other dragon's bones function like flesh and skin while I used a high-quality gem as the core. He had no soul, which means that he does not have free will, he only knows the response to my orders. It is like a golem. After about an hour and a half when I finished all of this, the last addition I made was to put a talisman at the entrance to the cave in order to make it look like any dead end of the mountain. After doing this I sat next to the Greater Grail and I opened the game screen to know what I gained. Who killed Ngramenu? You have completed main mission, Potential Evil. Description: in the Third Holy Grail War of the 1930s, Ngramenu, the source of all evil in the world, was summoned, but was defeated early. but his soul used the Grail as a womb in order to transform it into the source of all evil in the world. Due to the request of your current boss, Aliyashiki, you have to destroy Ngramenu. You can do that by destroying the Greater Grail, but you still have benefit from it. Subject, summon Ngramenu, the source of all evil, an evil of men, and kill him. Rating, perfect. Basic reward, 15 million EXP. Bonus reward, the essence of building a soul. The essence of building the soul, a spiritual essence in a bottle, while it does not have any special effects, but it can be used to repair the soul of the user if it has been damaged. You have reached level 129. You killed evil of men, Ngramenu, you gained 10 million EXP. You have reached level 132. You can choose one perk. Total statistical points, 14. You killed evil of men, Ngramenu, you can choose 2 skills and 1 noble phantasm. Skills. Authority of Beasts, C. Independent Manifestation, C. Avenger, A. Memory Correction, A. Eternal Regeneration, A. Torich, Left Fang Grinder, A. Zarek, Right Fang Grinder, A. Annihilation Wish, A. The Eye of the Mind, False, C. Divinity, E. NP. Ngramenu, All the World's Evil, EX. Vergavesta, D. Compared to Mephisto, Ngramenu was really lacking in skills. This is not really shocking because defeating Ngramenu was relatively easy. While Mephisto almost killed me, I used observation on all Ngramenu skills. Authority of Beasts, C. Due to the incomplete transformation of Ngramenu into all the world's evil, this skill decreases to the C level, obtaining a damage impulse against humans, useless against heroic and divine spirits. Independent Manifestation, C. Renders resistance against the instantaneous imposition of death and attacks affected by time manipulation. Avenger, A. Turning user-oriented hatred into a mana. Memory Correction, A. The damage value of his critical attacks are higher than other servants, as he attacks when other servants forget. Eternal Regeneration, A. The existence of Ngramenu as the root of all evil, his soul having been turned into an eternal generator, is an example of what the third magic is capable of accomplishing, though that was a result of the wish-granting aspect of the Grail rather than third magic. Torich, the Left Fang Grinder, A. With this weapon, Ngramenu can destroy the weapon of his opponent that was tangled by his other sword. Due to the influence of the Holy Grail, he gained the feature of traceability and repetition. Zarek, the Right Fang Grinder, A. With this weapon, Ngramenu can receive an opponent's attack and tangle it. Due to the influence of the Holy Grail, acquired the effect of tracing and repetition. Annihilation Wish, A. Ignoring the limits of his body during battle, he starts running and increases his speed infinitely. Of course, what awaits at the end is self-destruction, but in the last few seconds before burning out, Ngra can only be challenged by a first-rate servant. Eye of the Mind, False, C. Since Ngramenu is the weakest person of its kind, he has a slight sixth sense of danger, proving his presence in battle. Divinity, E. Because Ngramenu is not divine or possesses any divine lineage, he should not possess divinity, but he acquired it because the villagers wished him to be the god of all evil in the world. Ngramenu, all the world's evil, EX is a curse that had put all of the evils in the world on one person, that who became Ngramenu. It is not a very useful ability, as it only grants the servant's soul an alignment directed towards killing people even after when it takes on the form of directionless and alignmentless magical energy after losing the shell of its class. Normally it would not affect anything, but with the way the Great Grail is set up to take the servant's souls means placing all the world's evil into a wish-granting machine. Vergavesta, D. is a wound-sharing primal curse, which is one of the simplest curses of retribution. It is a third-rate noble phantasm that even Avenger finds to be worthless. It causes any damage taken by the user to also be dealt to the attacker by reflecting it directly on their soul. The ability causes no wounds to appear, but simply mirrors the pain associated with the wound onto the opponent. The damage will not heal until Avenger's wounds are healed or he succumbs to them. I looked at the list of skills and noble phantasms. It didn't make sense to get Authority of Beasts while I work under Alea, while Independent Manifestation in this rank is useless to me, and Eternal Regeneration is also not useful because I have infinite prana thanks to Alea and because I will get Heaven's Feel in the future if everything goes well. Which means that I have to cut between Avenger, Memory Correction, Zarek and Torich. While the Torich and Zarek properties are really useful, they are just cursed weapons, and even with the Knight of Honor they will be only noble phantasms of C rank. And while there is Eye of the Mind, False, its level is very low, and I already own the other version of it along with Instinct, and also, I prefer to get a higher rank than it. So in the end, I chose both Avenger, Memory Correction, and Virga Vesta. When I finished choosing, I headed towards the entrance of the cave. At that moment I felt pain in the back of my left hand. When I looked at my hand I saw 3 command seals. After I received the seals of the Order seals from the Holy Grail, I did not rush to summon Medea. I wanted it, but I waited 9 years already. A few weeks would make no difference. I started studying and analyzing the Holy Grail itself, and studying its rules and limits. The Holy Grail was similar to an operating system that runs a specific game, the Holy Grail War, and like any game it has its own rules and rewards. There were many rules and safety walls, but thanks to item construction EX rank it was not difficult to get past these walls and manipulate the rules. Regardless of the operation of the safety wall, in order to transform the regular Holy Grail War, where 7 masters and 7 servants fight to death, into the Great Holy Grail War where there are 2 teams with 7 servants in each division, while it requires the death of 14 servants in order to achieve a Heaven's Feel, except I can come up with several solutions. I also added several rules, such as that I added the Saint Graph function. In this way, even if a servant dies in this war and he is summoned in the next war, he will be able to remember this war, as the Holy Grail itself will save its data and memories. I have also increased the knowledge that the Holy Grail gives to the servants who are summoned. It will be unfortunate for my team to turn against each other before we even start fighting the other team, so I made the servants explain what is the difference between this war and previous wars. I also secured my own team. I identified Hercules and Iliasviel von Einsborn as members of my team, the Black Team. Because Heracles was summoned before I changed the rules, I could have withdrawn into my team. Hercules could be a strong ally while Iliasviel is the daughter of Kiritsugu. I don't really care about this, but I am interested in how she has so many magic circuits without ever being subjected to immediate death. I may be able to increase the number of my circuits, and perhaps even extend her life a little in return. The second master that I have chosen is Bazette Frogamacrimitz. She has been my companion in arms before, and she is also very strong for a human. Do not forget that she owns a sorcery trait from the era of God's holders in addition to Fragarak. Nor do I think that Ku Chulain would be useless like Lancer in the 4th Holy Grail War. The third master in my team will be Shinji Matul. Between him and Sakura, who did not know anything about magecraft, I choose him as an assassin master. His servant's identity will be random if he does not use a catalyst, but I think this is better, just as he is not the coward teenager we all know and hate. As for Rider's master, I didn't choose anyone because I didn't have anyone in my mind, so the Holy Grail might pick any random person, although I believe that Justice will pick a beneficial person for me after I saved her from Ngramenu. As for the other team, the Red Team, I did not interfere in it because I could not. The manipulation of the balance of power may lead to the automatic failure of the ritual, and while it was giving me a lateral organization, the manipulation of the other side would harm the balance, and balance is necessary for the sake of something, meditation, channeling my inner Thanos. As for the servant that I will call 3 servers. The first one will be my caster, Princess of Kalkas Medea. It's not only that I've been waiting only 10 years for this, but I love her too. I can remember her soft hand touch, softness of her voice, her soft purple hair and her pretty face, her kindness to me, and while she may not remember me normally, I can only use one small wish for this, although I am not sure that she will treat me kindly because I have grown up to be a handsome person. I remember she hates handsome men. The second servant would be Arturia Pendragon, Saber, not the heroic spirit from the Throne of Heroes, but the heroic spirit within Avalon. Not only is she a very powerful servant if she is not holding back, but she also has Excalibur, the most powerful holy sword, and I will be able to study the invisible air, while I can make artificial noble phantasm similar to it if I really try, but studying the original will make it easier. The third servant would be Archer. I was thinking of manipulating the rules and summoning Gilgamesh in a female body. This would be a great way to humiliate him, but I think it is stupid to have a servant who tends to betray me. I wanted a servant who was loyal to me. The servant that I thought of was Arash, the same servant who made the Oxus River in his lifetime. While his NP is a suicide attack, but I think he can teach me bow and arrow creation. Because I killed Ngramenu, Kirai Kotomine died because Ngramenu could no longer keep him alive anymore, yet Gilgamesh did not die because he was relying on Kirai as just a ship. He must have signed a contract with another person. Because of this it seems that he does not die. I can still relish my revenge. I also manipulated the Grail in order to create special recall rights in order to summon the servant in his strongest shape. This means that the servant on which I use this recall right will have the parameters at the highest level he can get, with all the skills he can get, while NP is still restricted according to the class. I did not intend to use these rituals on Arturia or Arash, only Medea, because the last time she died in 1 second against Gilgamesh, and I do not want her to die again. But not as if I will separate from her again. There are still many months before the Great Grail War begins, but I decided to call my servants now, so I drew 3 summoning circles on the ground. 2 of them are alike while the third is different. The different circle is the one that will respond to the special summoning chant, while the normal summoning circles will be desirable for the chant normally. I put Medea's skull in the middle of the special summons. While I am not happy with the fact that I am defiling Medea's body, but I have to use it in order to make sure that I do not call Medea Lily in an accident. This will be very embarrassing. As for Artoria, I could have used Rongaminiad, but Lancer might be called because of that, and while I think she's great, I only want to remove Artoria from Avalon, so I temporarily removed Avalon from my chest. As for Arash, I used a piece of his armor that I borrowed from Lore College from the clock tower. I had to provide a reason for doing this, but I said that I would participate in the Holy Grail War. This was not something that should be hidden because everyone knows that I participated in the 4th Holy Grail War. Also, it is not as if the clock tower will publish this news. Some failed mages may sell it in exchange for some resources, except that mages are people who care about their reputation inside the clock tower, and trying to make enemies with a genius and enforcer is just stupidity, especially since there is a possibility that this person will survive and take revenge. Anyway, before I starting the summoning rituals, I took out a fairy cloud and put it in my hand. I breathed deeply before I spoke. I hope, if I summon the Princess of Kalkis, Medea, that she will be able to remember what happened in the 4th Holy Grail War that happened 10 years ago and in this timeline. The cloud glowed in a golden light for a few moments before it decreased a little in size. Seeing this I smiled. It seems that this cloud was not useless after all. I have one small wish and I think it will be beneficial in the future. For some reason I have this 6th sense that I should save it, so I put it in my storage before I stand between the 3 summoning circles, extend my left hand forward, and start the summoning ritual. You who fell once before, I am who still standing here is calling you. Follow my prayers, my determination will shape your body, and your strength will shape my future. If your quest for the Holy Grail is to ascend and not to fall, obey my reasons and my will. The 3 summoning circles began to glow in bright white magic energy. With my oath to you, I shall be all the good in the world, and I shall destroy all evil in the world. If you wish to be my sword and shield, obey my call. In a bright explosion of white light, 3 characters were formed. In front of me there was a beautiful woman who looked like from a fairy tale with purple hair and a mysterious blue robe, a blonde teenage girl wearing a blue dress with a knight's armor, and a man with a bright smile wearing a blue armor. I resisted the urge to say anything and used my abilities as a master to see their condition, just to make sure nothing went wrong. True name, Medea. Class, Caster. Parameter. Strength, E+. Endurance, D. Agility, C. Mana, A+. Luck, A. NP, C. Class skills. Item construction, A. Territory creation, A. Personal skills. High-speed divine words, A. Golden fleece, EX. Teaching of Circe, A. Poison resistance, A. Divinity, C. Noble phantasms. Rule breaker, C. Pain breaker, C. Argon coin, N/A. True name, Arash. Class, Archer. Parameter. Strength, B. Endurance, A. Agility, B+. Mana, E. Luck, D. NP, B++. Class skills. Magic resistance, C. Independent action, C. Personal skills. Rebel's health, EX. Clairvoyant, A. Bow and arrow creation, A. NP. Stella, B++. True name, Arturia Pendragon. Class, Saber. Parameter. Strength, A. Endurance, A. Agility, A. Mana, A. Luck, A+. NP, A++. Class skills. Magic resistance, A. Writing, B. Personal skills. Charisma, B. Mana burst, A. Instinct, A. NP. Excalibur, A++. Invisible air, C. Seeing this, I smiled comfortably. It seems that Medea was in her peak, really. Unfortunately, it is not eligible for other classes like Assassin or Avenger, otherwise it will be able to acquire many additional skills, and it seems that she has also acquired her younger version skills as well as Pain Breaker. As for Arash, he is at its peak, it seems, because as an archer, he is less affected by the system of classes. As for Artoria, she is stronger than she was in her life, it seems, perhaps because I am a qualified master. They were confused, but like any servant, they said in one man's voice, "Are you my master?" "No." I said, "I really want to hug Medea now, but it seems I have to wait. Luke, I am your father." The silence lasted moments. It seems that I inadvertently created a strange atmosphere similar to what happened several years ago. The only difference is that we are now 4 people and not just 2 people, but it seems that I did not have me to moisturize the atmosphere this time. However, I summoned Avalon and Medea's skull into my inventory again. "Well, I'm Arash, master, nice to meet you," Arash said when he approached me and reached out to me to shake his hand. "Well, Arash, I had the honor to know you, but for the sake of secrecy I will call you Archer of Black. I'm Victor Von Doom." I told him while I looked at him for a moment, but I went back to looking at Medea. Even though she was wearing her mask covering the top half of her face, I could tell that she had been staring at me for a while. "Victor," she said as she tilted her head to the side. In the Fourth Holy Grail War, I was only 10 years old and I was very different from now. Currently, I am 20 years old with a height of 185 centimeters. I also have a little muscular body as I look like I do regular exercises every morning, although that my hair is still black and my eyes are still green except that I can make my eyes adopt a red bloody color if I wanted to. It was because of the dragon kind modification. It seems that she is having difficulty getting to know me. "Medea," I smiled at her and approached her a little, but I didn't touch her because she might think this was weird. "So guys, do you know each other? You're a caster. Did you pass away recently, or was Master really old?" Arash asked with a smile. "I am dead 2,700 years ago, Archer," Medea answered quietly before asking me, "Anyway, Victor, how long has it been?" I was about to answer, but Arturia, Saber, who was silent from the start, decided to speak at last. By virtue of the fact that the Holy Grail War is an event that takes time every 60 years, and I remember that he was 10 years old, I suppose he is now 70 years old. Artoria said. I looked at her. She seems to remember me clearly, and she seems to have chosen not to hide that she remembers the previous war either because she saw that Medea also remembered, or because she had a superficial knowledge of me since the previous war. Nor was it strange that she knew that Castor was my servant in the previous war. When a battle occurred between 2 servants all masters watched, although I am not sure of her reaction to the fact that I killed Lancelot, but I still think I did a good thing in ending his life. Everyone hates being berserkers. "Hey, do you know him too? You all participated in the previous Holy Grail War?" "Yes," Arturia replied, "it's not good memories." "So 60 years have passed?" Medea asked me. "You don't look that old." "It has only been 10 years. I told her while I got close to her, and she hugged her tightly. "It is nice to see you again, Medea." She was shorter than me, and physically weaker than me, so when I hugged her, it looked as if I was pressing her on my chest, and although she didn't hug me at first, she did a few seconds later. "I miss you, Medea," I whispered to her ear, ignoring the fact that 2 people were watching us. "I don't know what to say, Victor, but I need to breathe," she said to me. I let her go and I turned towards Arash and Arturia. While I wanted to talk to them a little bit, but just Arash and Arturia can wait. "Archer, I want you to explore the city and map it, and if you can, I also want you to draw a map of the sewers and discover other masters if they get here, okay?" "Okay, master." Arash answered lively. "It is good that he is the loyal type as long as you treat him well." "Saber, I want you to stay informed of the information Archer provides. Planning is not one of my talents, and because you have experience in this field as a former king, I will leave this to you, okay?" I asked her. "Okay, master." She answered me with a strong voice. "Saber." I called her name. "Yes? Can you also not make direct combat always your first choice? I understand that this is because you are a knight and everything, but apart from you, Archer and Castor cannot display their full strength in direct combat," I said to her. "While I am sure I can defeat ordinary servants in ease in direct combat, but Arash cannot fight directly against people in the Saber, Berserker and Lancer class, especially since his noble phantasm is a suicide attack. As for Medea, I will not let her engage in close combat. Castor was supposed to use her magic to support her allies and weaken her enemies, and not to fight an adversary that is physically stronger than her several times." A few moments of silence, Arturia said, "Okay, master." Both of them entered into their spiritual state. Presumably Arash had begun his work immediately. Arturia on the other hand may still be here and spying on me like a ghost. "So what should I do, Victor?" Medea asked me. "I remember you told me that the Holy Grail is really unholy. Why did you participate in it again?" "The Holy Grail is no longer damaged," Medea, which means we can have a wish, I told her with a smile. Really? How is that? By the way, why do I have memories of the previous Holy Grail War? She asked me. She is. The Holy Grail was used as a womb by Avenger, an extra-class servant in the Holy Grail War of 1938, and was slowly transforming into a known entity as all the world's evil, but this evil creature was defeated by a hero with green eyes. I was silent for a moment before complete. As for your memories, I have found a way to give them to you. I hope you don't mind. I see, said Medea while she got into a meditating state, although I have to tell you something. Is there something? I don't really have those memories, it's like reading a book, so even though I can reach them, I don't really have them, without any experience or feelings. What do you think of this? She removed her mask and looked at me while she was smiling. It seems that although she does not really have these memories, she decided to be friendly with me because of those memories, or maybe she plans to betray me and it is something close to zero, but I think that she is affected by these memories. Although I was not really happy with this news, the fairy cloud did at least something and was able to relive those memories, and also, I own Medea in front of me now. Finally, the goal of me that last 10 years is over. I see, I nodded in my head. Well, that's fine. You do not feel dissatisfied or anything? She asked me while she tilted her head. Why would I be? It's not like you're dead or something. I honestly told her, it is also natural that you do not embrace these memories because you were summoned again in a different war. Ah. She smiled and said, so, I know you wanted to tell me something before I died before, maybe you don't remember this, but I'll ask you anyway. Oh. I thought for a moment if I had to tell her. My feelings were starting to develop at that time. I had a doctorate in psychology, so I know that my feelings started because I was a broken-hearted child, and because Medea was a beautiful and kind and brave witch and do anything I want, but for a long time I think my feelings for her are real. Saying this to her may cause an awkward situation, which is what I really don't want. Since she is quite someone else, I prefer slowly building my relationship with her. I don't remember, it was 10 years ago. I told her with a smile. Anyway, you have a divinity C rank. It's really high because you haven't owned it before, but what does your divinity really do? I am the granddaughter of the sun god, Helios, so it mostly gives me resistance to fire or an increase in damage with fire. I did not own it in my life, so I do not know much, but it seems that its rank has fallen because I hate the gods, she said without any indifference. It seems that she does not mind share secrets she shared with me before. I nodded, but unfortunately Medea is not an expert in the magic of fire. Medea, I want to talk to you a lot. What do you think about going to another place? I told her while I extended my hand towards her. She looked at me surprisingly for a few seconds before holding my hand. She smiled and pulled me with me. I completed the mission that tells me to take it back, but one mission can wait. Many months have passed quickly, unexpectedly. Perhaps this is the quietest and most peaceful of my life, without any devil like Mephisto planning to start the era of demons, or any evil god like Ngramenu trying to exterminate humanity. I haven't even trained my magecraft like I used to do before. The strength of both modern magecraft and magecraft from the Age of Gods has reached the limits of the magecraft. Anything beyond this is true magic. At my level, this is all I can do to advance is gathering knowledge from different branches of thaumaturgy and magecraft of different quality from my own. On the other hand, I continued with my regular routine, working like enforcer of Mage Association, and spending time with my twin sister, Valeria Rachel von Doom, although she is not the girl from my childhood anymore, but now she at least considers me a brother of her. As a brother, I have to spoil her and agree to all of her behaviors even if it's wrong. Nevertheless, I was also building my relationship with each of my 3 servants, Arash, Artoria and Medea, especially Medea. Although servants are familiar being summoned by the Holy Grail to fight alongside the Master, they were not pets or slaves, so that command seals are useless because many servants have magic resistance or skill that gives them resistance against command seals. Event that loyal and obedient servants have a chance to betray you or kill you if they don't like you. Precisely for this reason, apart from Medea that has an evil alignment, I chose Artoria Pendragon who has a lawful good alignment, because even if she don't like me she won't betray me because she is a knight. Betrayal is not really in her dictionary. As for Arash, although his alignment is chaotic neutral, in view of a personality, he is the type who will never betray his master as long as his master does not exceed his principles, and as long as his master treats him well and does not betray him first. In addition to that, I could learn his distinct skill, bow and arrow creation. Although my class B is only, as long as I possess the right materials I can create the bow immediately, and similar to Arash, I can create arrows with only my magic energy, which it gives me the ability to shoot an endless number of arrows intermittently. Therefore, while I have command seals, it is only the last means of safety, the original purpose of which is not to compel the servant to obey you, but in order to kill him after defeating the other servants. According to Mikiri Zaljin's notes, this was the only way to achieve the third magic for them. Regardless of which I used to do my usual stuff, Medea has converted Ryudo Temple to her temple again after everyone's brains are washed. These people are brainwashed frequently, their luck must be less than zero. The reason for doing this was not obtaining mana from the Lay's line, because she was attracting unlimited prana from me, who was attracting her from Elia, but obtaining a temple gave her a strategic advantage in addition to enhancing her magical abilities. As for Arash, Archer, he was responsible for gathering information, exploring, monitoring and observing the city in the event of other masters and servants arriving, or in the event that someone summoned a new servant, and this was not really difficult thanks to his hawk eye. As for Artoria, because I have been entrusted with the task of planning, she does not do anything specially regardless of whether she accompanies Medea a lot. Luckily my Medea was not obsessed with her. She previously asked me about my opinion about her reign. I answered her honestly and told her that the mistakes she made were more than the rights, but nothing emotional or dramatic. Perhaps the reason for her question was that I was a master of Lancelot in the past, and I do not think I changed her mind, as I didn't even tried. For me, I used to spend my free time with Medea, just that it is another copy that does not mean that it is not Medea, and I have been trying to get close to it several times. Luckily my attempts were having its effects. Unlike modern-era magus who are having difficulty learning magecraft, the Age of Gods, although Medea cannot get true magic but magecraft is easy for her, so we started a mutual learning session. Medea was one of the 5 most powerful magus, and although I own her spells, she had a great experience that she could pass on to me. She was surprised when she knew I could use her magecraft. For me, I taught her modern magecraft, especially the magecraft of fire, and thanks to her divinity from the sun god she could learn everything relatively easily. Of course I taught her many things other than the magecraft of fire. I also told her about all the things that I did after the 4th Holy War of the Grave, from killing me to Zokan Matu to returning home to find out that my dad is dead, and how I was hunting phantasm beasts. I also told her about my hunting of the sins, wrath, envy, greed, sloth, lust, gluttony, and even I told her that I killed Mephisto and Ngramenu. While I didn't really expect her to believe me from the start, Argus, Calchas Dragon, was working as a trusted witness even though he and Medea were not in sync. Me and Medea also made a suitable summon spell, so Medea could have summoned her own version of the useless golden dragon. Also, by studying her divinity skill, it appears that due to the Medea hatred to the gods in addition to her legend of the Witch of Betrayal, this skill was greatly reduced, but it is assumed that it must be at least a Medea must have reached the throne of the gods. If it not been for the fact that I had deceived the rules, then Medea would not have awakened her divinity. Also, thanks to the completion of my mission, Lost Love, I got 500,000 EXP and NP in the form of 2 marriage rings. As long as there are 2 people of the opposite sex who wear it, they will always know the location and condition of the other person as long as he is in the same dimension. It is like a magical marriage contract, and even if the partner is in another dimension or timeline, the other partner can know if he is alive or dead. Name, Lost Love Rings. Owner, unspecified, Victor Von Doom. Type, anti-unit. Rank, E. Range, dash. Maximum number of targets, 2. This was a little ironic. Among an unlimited number of noble phantasms, I got wedding rings. At first I thought I would ask for Medea's hand after the Holy Grail War ended. I think I love her enough, and I also think I would love to live a quiet life with her. However, the last time I thought about the same thing, after the Holy Grail War, but I didn't even have the opportunity to see her again. The person knows what he is missing only after losing it, and I don't want to become this person again. Also, compared to the 4th Holy Grail War where I spent 2 weeks with her, my chances are higher now. Medea, can I ask you something? I asked her when I sat at the table in front of her. Of course, Victor, what do you want? She smiled at me when she lifted her head off the book. I had been thinking about this for a very long time, and I was planning at first to wait after this war ended. Your answer is really important, I told her honestly, while I grabbed her hands. Huh? What? She said to me as she smiled naively. Her cheeks were a little red. Perhaps this was one of the few times that I had an intimate interaction with her. I had been building my relationship with her for a year, and even if she hadn't loved me at first, she was now, I'm sure, otherwise I wouldn't have taken my step. Will you marry me? What? She asked me shockedly, and her eyes expanded a little. Maybe she wasn't really expecting to ask her, but I've already made up my mind. I want to complete my life with her. Will you marry me? I asked her again while I tightened my hands. I don't know what to really say, she told me while she seemed to be focusing. I love you, this is what I wanted to say for years, and until now. But, why do you ask me to marry? I am the witch of betrayal, I might look kind and beautiful, but are you not afraid that I will betray you, cut your body to pieces? I closed my eyes, I was not really a person to neutralize emotional talk, so I decided to tell her only the truth. I know you are not like this, your kindness and beauty are the real you, and I love you. She looked at me for a long time before she smiled, okay, but before I answer you, don't say I didn't warn you. I nodded. And, you know that I am not the real Medea, I am just a copy created by the Holy Grail for the purpose of participating in the ritual, right? I am not even the Medea that you previously summoned. Yes, but... I smiled at her, you are the one with me. Also, can you stop looking for excuses? That's mean. She told me before she smiled. My answer is, yes. I raised my eyebrows slightly before I realized that she really agreed. Since I was holding her hands, I pulled it towards me and kissed her for the first time lightly in her lips. This. I ignored her bumbling and took the ring out of my pocket. Can I? Victor, I'm so happy. She said while she gave me her left hand. I grabbed her and put the ring on her middle finger. This is it, my happy ending. After all that has happened, it's really over. Ayaka Sagiu made room in her living room by pushing the couches and the table to the side, and although she believes this is annoying, she does not think she has an opinion on this. Originally, Ayaka belonged to a small family of magus practicing formal craft and witchcraft, and the only reason they were considered mages may be due to formal craft. After all, witches are not welcome among the mages community. When she was young, her parents were killed by an ordinary thief, which caused her orphanage and her going to live with her relatives America, and while she kept her parents' books on magecraft, she could not force herself to practice magecraft before. While she belonged to the family line of the magus, and possesses 30 circuits with a C rank in quality, it is because of the shock that her parents were killed in front of her eyes in her infancy that made her unable to kill live animals, which is what her family magecraft requires. 20 years after the establishment of the Shinto Fuyuki region, Ayaka was a student who rented the second room on the 11th floor of Semina's apartments. There was a family suicide in the fall, and Ayaka was witness to it. However, it was not really a suicide, it was a murder. There was an old man who took the family of their neck and sucked blood from their bodies. Since she was a magus, she got to know the identity of this creature, Dead Apostle, a vampire. Since she was an untrained magus, she had no chance against Dead Apostle, so she accepted her fate. But contrary to her own expectations, the Dead Apostle used his mystic eyes of enchantment to calm her down before giving her a choice. The first option is that he will make her forget everything and she will go on a journey for self-knowledge, without telling anyone, and the second option is to participate in the Holy Grail War. Since she was magus from Fuyuki, she knew what the Holy Grail was, as her parents were planning to take part in it but they had no opportunity. With no other option that does not require her disappearance or death, she accepted to participate in the game of death called the Holy Grail War. According to the words of the vampire, it seems that this war will be between two factions, each faction consists of 7 masters and servants. Even the Dead Apostle gave her a proper catalyst, Avalon, and he told her that by using it you could summon King Arthur or at least one of the members of the Round Table. Ayaka drew the summoning circle on the ground of her apartment and began talking the summoning chant of the Red faction. The summons began to glow with white light and magical energy condensed to form a person who appears in his late teen to his early 20s. He has golden blonde hair with several streaks of red hair. He wears a set of white knight armor and a crimson mantle. Are you my master? The knight said when he saw Ayaka. What? No. I mean, yes. Ayaka confusedly said. Ha ha ha, okay master, do you have a name? The knight smiled upon seeing the expression of his master. Yes, I'm Ayaka Sagiu, and you? I'm Saber of Red, Richard the Lionheart. Anyway, should we try to find members of our faction? I think so, unity is strength and in. Before Ayaka could finish her words, Richard jumped in front of him and used his sword to hit several knives was thrown towards her, and Richard remained in a defensive position in front of her. What is that? Ayaka panicked. Another servant, given that he tried to assassinate you with throwing weapons, I suppose he is an assassin, Richard said earnestly. Again, Richard rotated around Ayaka and withheld another set of knives that were thrown from a different angle. Expose yourself. Assassin. Richard shouted. Because of the tightness of the apartment he could not use his full potential without destroying the building. Good to see you again after death, Lionheart, said Dark Shadow from the back from the corner of the room. You, Hassan? Said Richard, confusedly, when he got to know this person. I didn't think he would see you again, It's really nice to see you, said Richard, confusedly, when he got to know this person. I really hope our feelings are mutual, but I do not have the sexual orientation, said Hasan Sabah as he stepped back. Ha, I want to ask you, you don't happen to be in the Red faction, right? Unfortunately no. So you want to fight me now? Richard said while preparing his sword. The assassination has already failed, bye. He said Assassin of Black before retreating into the shadows. Richard sheathed his sword and turned towards Ayaka, it was so close. You know that servant? Ayaka asked Richard confusedly. Yes, we too as well as Saladin have launched a crusade against dead apostles. Richard said briefly. Ayaka was about to say something but Richard boycotted her. Hey, is this Avalon? The real Avalon? The Fifth Holy Grail War, also known as the Great Holy Grail War, officially started because a large number of masters summoned their servants. Just a few hours ago it was confirmed that Rin Tosaka had summoned her servant, Archer dressed in red and had brown skin and white hair. It was rather strange that Rin Tosaka could summon Amiya Shiro on this timeline as well, but I had no questions about this. Archer also discovered the arrival of Karen Hortensia, who had many command seals in his hand. Since the church could not send a judge in a war that had a ruler, I assumed she is a master in the war. Arash discovered both Atram Galliasta and Marisbury Animusphere and Kenneth El Meloy Archibald together. It seemed that they were allied and it seemed that their servants were in a state of spirit. I was not surprised by the participation of both Atram and Marisbury, but Kenneth's participation was surprising especially after what happened to him in the last war. It seems that he decided to participate in order to restore his honor and gain glory, and perhaps also repair his body completely by the miracle wish of the Grail. For Marisbury, he seems to have decided to participate despite his belief that the Holy Grail is corrupted only in order to summon a servant and search for allies, or that he has discovered that the Holy Grail is not corrupted anymore. The second possibility is too big. It is difficult to guess the identity of their servants without seeing them, but I will assume that Marisbury's servant is a caster because his servant in Fate Grand Order was a caster. Arash discovered both Grey and her servant who was guarding her from the shade. Her servant was a lancer with a short body and Chinese features. It was not difficult to guess that her identity is Qin Liangyu, especially with my eye for art. Waver was with them too. He seems to be trying to overcome his phobia. Shinji Mato summoned Assassin, Hasan of the Blood Melody surreptitiously on Korea, and joined my faction. It wasn't difficult to make him trust me because he knew I was a family friend because I had visited them several times in the past. Bazette Frogum Kremitz also accepted my invitation and came to where she could summon Lancer, Ku Kyulane, without any incidents or interruptions because Kirai Kotomine was not here to kill her. On the other hand, Iliasville von Einsburn reached Fuyuki several hours ago but did not come to my palace. Instead, she went to the Einsburn family palace in the woods. Because of me killing Ngramenu, the Dark Grail lost its dark properties and became usable like a regular Lesser Grail, so Iliasville's sacrifice was not really necessary in order to activate the Greater Grail. While I did not go to her, I made Arash introduce himself and help her if she really needed it. While I do not have any benefit from that, but it would not be appropriate for a kid-looking girl to die, I have Morales. On the other hand, Hasan of the Blood Melody discovered that Ayaka Sajiu made a summoning and tried to kill her and fail. Shinji blamed him a little, and while I was a little dissatisfied, at least Assassin was able to know the identity of the servant, Saber, Richard of the Lionheart. It seems that Hasan of the Blood Melody was the same person who was an ally of both Saladin and Richard the Lionheart. It would have been great if Saladin had been summoned too. Although Richard will be a very difficult enemy, especially his ability to summon other heroic spirits and Godspeed that gives him unlimited speed, and because this is a different Holy Grail war, I will assume that he has different skills. Fortunately, Arturia can match and defeat him, while both possess Excalibur, but Arturia has the original, and so on, she is also superior. Luvia Gelita Edelfelt was discovered coming with her servant, a brown man in civilian clothes. Finding who he was also wasn't that difficult. Ozymandias, the Egyptian version of Gilgamesh. While these two lived in Edelfelt Palace which had been empty for 70 years, both of Marsberry, Atram, and Kenneth chose an island very close to Fuyuki as a base, while Waver and Grey rented a small house, Karen chose the church, and Ayaka stayed in her apartment. Earlier, I sent Lancer and Bazette in order to search for the enemy servant and test their strength. Secretly, I also made Shinji send Assassin in order to support them in case of bad conditions. While I remained in my palace, I monitored them all from my crystal ball. Perhaps it was a coincidence, or perhaps luck, or destiny, but Lancer ended up fighting Amiya in the high school yard. Lancer was superior in both speed and strength on Amiya. In fact, every time the Gibalg, Kansho, and Bakuya collided, Bakuya and Kansho was destroyed, but Amiya makes another one almost immediately by using projection. After some time, Lancer went back several meters and smiled, haha. I finally discovered your identity, Saber. You are the famous blacksmith, Ganjiang. Your 2 swords revealed your identity. Actually, I'm not that person, and I'm Archer. Amiya said quietly as he got into another combat situation. He is Saber. And he is Satan. A girl with black hair and red clothes said when she went out of the school building. For God's sake, Rin. I'm not the fucking Satan. Amiya shouted upon hearing the words of his master, and for God's sake has permitted Rin. Do you understand anything about finding a safe haven? Good try, Satan, but you must destroy him now. Stop playing with him, Rin said as she stepped back. Under normal circumstances, the Holy Grail should not be able to summon powerful beings such as Satan, Lancer said while placing his spear in front of him. No, I'm telling you, I'm not Satan. Amiya corrected Lancer. Nice try. Lancer said vehemently, but since fate has written that we have to fight here, it is my responsibility to destroy an evil and sinister being like you. Gee. Lancer said, as his spear began to glow and fog in red, and with that, before he could finish off his noble phantasm's operation, something happened. Berserker, attack. A girl's voice was heard from the side, and at the next moment Ku Kyulane was beaten by someone and he was thrown as a bird until he collided with the school wall. The person who attacked him was a man with a height of 3 meters, possessing animal traits such as a bull horns over his head and wearing an iron shield. The fuck? Amiya said while he slid back. Are you from the Red Faction? A girl with white hair and dressed in priestess said when she approached Rin Tosaka. What, yes? Are you? Said Rin, confusedly. Yes, my servant is Berserker, and you? My name is Karen, by the way. My servant is Saber, Rin said proudly, and he's Satan. As I watched the battle unfold, someone wrapped his arms around my neck back and kissed me in my cheek. I smiled and turned towards Medea and kissed her deeply in the lips, while we did not use our tongue but it was emotional. After several seconds I separated our kiss. So what happens on the battlefield? Medea asked me when she sat in a chair next to me. Unexpectedly, things are very good. I replied, while I did not remove my eyes from the crystal ball, but I held the hand of Medea in a way that intertwined our fingers. In the past few days after I asked for her hand, and her agreement of it, we became so close as real couples, we even made love, while it was impossible for her to become pregnant because her body is made of ether, but this did not prevent us from trying so hard. Every time I wake up in the morning and find it next to me, every time she tries to prepare food and fail with it, every time she smiles towards me, every time she wraps her arms around my neck and kisses me, I feel that my life has made sense. Previously, all I knew before was studying, training, hunting phantasm species, getting a new noble phantasm and learning a new magecraft spell, and killing a creature that threatened the earth and humanity before I went back to a cold room and sleep only to repeat the same thing the next day. I didn't even care if I died or not. But now I own someone I live for, someone I want to protect, someone who loves me and I love her, while I care for my sister, but this is because she is not only my sister, but my twins. While the time that I was in the womb was chaotic randomly, I could hardly have formed one idea, but she was sharing the room with me. Does Lancer win? Medea asked me. No. He's being hit hard by Berserker like any other Lancer. I corrected her. On the battlefield, Lancer has been trying hard not to get hit by Berserker, who seems to be Asterios, while Hassan of the Bloody Melody got in and started fighting Amiya, while he was losing slowly, but he was dealing with the issue in a good way. Hassan of the Bloody Melody was not really weak in close combat. On the other hand, Karen and Rin were fighting Bazette directly, while Bazette couldn't use Fragorak because of his limitations, but she was physically strong and strengthened her body by runes, so she could fight both Karen and Rin equally with mastery, preventing Rin from using her jewels. Good joke, dear, I know that you killed Lancer in the last war by Berserker. She smiled, before she focused on the crystal ball as well. I know this Berserker. Medea said when she noticed Asterios. Oh really? I told her randomly. Yes, he is Asterios, my cousin. I had never seen him before, but I heard that he was imprisoned in a maze that he could never escape from because he was a monstrous beast hybrid. Medea told me quietly, apparently she thought I was lacking this information. Let's continue watching, I told her with a smile, as my hands tightened her hand. Amiya avoided the knives that Assassin was firing from his arm while he banned some of them using Kansho and Bakuya. He had been trying to get close to Assassin for a while, but Assassin was good at keeping away from the enemy. Around the same time, Ku Kyulain took advantage of the fact that Asterios was slower than him and dodged his axes before he drew many Ensa's runes in the air, causing a fiery explosion in the face of Asterios. Then Ku Kyulain jumped over Asterios before trying to stab him in the head by Gibalg. Gi. Suddenly, a knight in a white shield and wearing a red robe jumped toward Kyulain and attempted to stab him with his sword. Fortunately, Kyulain blocked the sword with his spear. Well, this is starting to get boring. This is the second time I'm about to kill my opponent, but I'm interrupted. Lancer said when he stood a few meters away. Well, even though I don't like interrupting others' battles, I couldn't have let a friend die. Richard the Lionheart said with a smile. And who are you? I am Saber of Red. Proudly, Richard said. Don't try to trick me. Saber is Satan over there, Kyulain said angrily and pointed towards Amiya. I told you, I'm not the fucking Satan. Amiya yelled and banned Hassan's knives at the same time, narrowed the distance between them and tried to kill Hassan by Kansho and Bakuya. However, Hassan used disengage to get away from Amiya before throwing several knives towards him, after which Hassan went into Bazette's battle against Rin and Karen. Hassan was about to use Sabaniya, Dead Heartbeat Melody, to kill Rin instantly, but suddenly Amiya quickly appeared in front of him and he waved both Kansho and Bakuya and cut Hassan's right arm. Fool! Hassan said before turning around and started running away. Seeing this, Amiya started chasing him. Lancer of Black, Ku Kyulain, avoided acts of Asterios and banned Richard's sword at the same time, while he could fight them equally, but Richard was increasing in speed over time. At first it was easy for Kyulain to fight them evenly, but after only 2 minutes he started to feel as hard as it is. Fortunately that Asterios was not as dangerous to him as Richard is. Of course, this does not mean that his strokes are not affected, while Richard is skilled and quick, but every time Kyulain blocks an Asterios axe he feels his arms are shaking. This idiot, said Richard before stepping back and letting Asterios deal with Ku Kyulain. Richard headed towards Bazette's battle against Rin and Karen as the Hassan of Bloody Melody arm had turned into a giant of blades and the giant had tried to crush both Karen and Rin. It appears that despite her combat superiority, Karen realizes its boundaries and decides to retreat immediately, while Rin kicks Bazette and retreats before throwing several small jewels over the giant. These jewels instantly transformed into a crystal dome that pressed the giant onto the ground while Rin go to safety. Seeing this, Richard knew that this was his chance. The giant was the arm and strength of the Hassan of the Bloody Melody, so destroying it would be a huge loss to the enemy if Amiya couldn't kill Assassin. X, said Richard as he raised his sword up before waving it, Caliba. Perhaps because Bazette was one of the enemy's masters, he did not care about the fact that she would be hit by his attack as well, and the golden beam immediately passed through and destroyed Hassan's arm. Berserker. With an angry screaming sound, a large, black, and angry creature appeared in front of Bazette and used his body and arms to block Richard's attack, and although he prevented the attack from reaching Bazette, this person, Heracles, was thrown backwardly flying. My god, Richard said when he saw that his attempt to kill the Master of Lancer had failed. On the other hand, it seems that Heracles was killed, but his body did not disappear. Instead a hot smoke began to emerge from it. Richard Lionheart sighed internally and quickly approached Bazette in an attempt to kill her again. In normal cases, as a proud king and knight he would not try to kill a person who is much weaker than him in this war. After all, he does not even have a wish. However, his master's orders were very accurate. While Ayaka did not tell him to kill the other masters, however, she told him to win as soon as possible. Also, Richard was not one of the people who were reluctant to kill masters in this war. War is war. When there was less than 1 meter between Bazette and Richard, some birds made of white wire attacked Richard for obstructing him, while he could easily destroy them, but someone began to shoot arrows continuously towards him, putting Richard in a complete defensive position. However, it seemed that conditions worsened only because at about the same moment Ku Kyulain threw his spear at him. Fortunately Richard could have avoided him quickly by jumping to the side. Now this was dick move. Ku Kyulain angrily said, you dare to try to kill a lady because you couldn't kill her knight, and here I thought all the sabers were honest and proud. Defending myself, she was the enemy, said Richard while he continued to ban arrows and try to figure out where to throw them. Bazette, get out of this battlefield immediately, said Ku Kyulain to his master via the mental channel linking them. However, Lancer called up his spear in his hand and began to fight Asterios again. On the other hand, Richard believed that the enemy berserker, Heracles, was dead. After only a few moments, Richard the Lionheart was punched strong enough to send him flying toward the school wall, while Heracles shouted loudly and jumped over to Richard, the latter immediately avoiding his attack. Fortunately, he had an eye of the mind, true, in the B rank, otherwise he could not get out of his headache and avoid so quickly. On the other hand, Rin and Karen had entered the school building in order to escape from the other side and avoid anyone trying to discover them, but suddenly several birds made of the white wire attacked him. While Rin used Gand and destroyed 2 birds, she Karen using reinforcement magecraft to give her body enough strength to tear up a single bird. "What is that?" Rin said. "The enemy," answered Karen briefly while raising her caution. From the end of the corridor in front of them, a little girl who does not seem to be more than 12 years old, has white hair, red eyes, and has purple clothes. "This is Einsburn homunculi," Rin cautiously said. "Hello, Nei-chan. You didn't really expect that you could escape without being discovered by anyone, right?" she said with a smile. "Damn." Rin cursed under her breath. Ilya simply smiled and made several additional familiars and used them to attack both Rin and Karen. Karen was hoping well, because she had been trained from a young age to be a human weapon, she had no difficulty in overcoming these familiars. On the other hand, Rin was facing little difficulty when the fighting became close to range, but she managed to win. Rin immediately approached Ilya and attempted the attack, but Ilya used Mystic Eyes of Binding to paralyze Rin and try to kill her, but Karen sent the black key to Ilya, who retracted in order not to hit him, but still she is hit in the arm. "Assassin is dead," Medea said while she showed me the scene where Assassin of Black, Hassan of the Bloody Melody, was killed by Amiya, while the latter went to school again. "Shinji seems to be out of the game now," I said quietly. "Should I step in?" Medea told me. "This is impossible. I will tell Arash to take Ilyasville and run away, and tell Berserker to run away too." "Please Victor, I can bring this victory, just trust me," Medea said. "If we hesitate for a few more seconds, Lancer and Berserker will be defeated." I looked a little. I cannot allow this, but I will intervene when things go wrong, or I will send Artoria. Also, I gave her Psyche, who went through 4 stages of complete ascension and averaged B++ stats, and Medea owned Kalkus Dragon too. In no way, Medea was not the weakest servant in this war. And with my endless mana reserves, she can maximize her power. Maybe I can allow this, but no. I categorically told her, "I'll go in. I just want you to watch me, okay?" She looked at me a little bit before she kissed me. "I love that you are so protective, dear." I smiled before I told Arash to make both Cu Culane and Hercules run away and take Ilyasville with him. Upon hearing his confirmation, I immediately wore my Doom armor and moved Anya towards the schoolyard where both Lancer and Hercules had just fled. "Greetings," I told them while I used a shield function to amplify my voice. "And who exactly are you?" Richard said when he turned towards me. I fired a hum from my mouth, but I avoided the axe of Asterios. I ignored Richard for a second and I struck Asterios with all my physical strength with a punch in his chin that sent him flying 15 meters above the ground, while I at the same time took out the gi bid and intercepted Richard's sword, who at the same time jumped back again. I quickly rushed towards him and punched him in the face with enough force to make him hit the school wall and break it hard. I rotated and held the axes of Asterios, who was managing their use of my segment. Because of this, he started pressuring me with his weight and strength. My physical strength is almost in A and is greatly increased by monstrous strength EX, while Asterios' strength is in A+++ and is greatly increased due to monstrous strength A. I pushed him back a little by gaining the opportunity to kick him firmly in his chest, just enough to destabilize his body, before I punched him in his chest and sent him back. I flipped back to avoid Richard's sword, while I made an Argos wall to block Amiya's arrows, which then immediately pulled out the Kansho and Bakuya and jumped towards me in an attempt to attack me. I immediately avoided him, but he quickly turned around and was about to touch my shield, but before he did that he completely freezed. I retreated a little bit to put a distance between me and the 3 warriors. "Well, isn't this some kind of a surprise?" I said, with a hint of entertainment. "It seems the boss liked me more than she liked you, Saber." "What have you done to me?" Amiya said as his body started moving again. "I did not do anything. I simply said, but you have to go now, actual Satan." It looks as though Amiya is about to explode, but he immediately retracted when he saw that Richard had already left, leaving just me and Asterios. Asterios also tried to retreat, but I used Atlas to freeze it in place by compressing air around his body, before I took Envy out and cut it from the bottom to the sky. "Envy, a blade that cuts the world," I said while a blade of compressed energy cut off the body of Asterios and headed to the sky. "You killed a Berserker of Red, Asterios, you gained 2 million EXP. You killed Berserker of Red, Asterios, you can choose 2 skills and 1 noble phantasm. Skills: Mad Enhancement, B. Monstrous Strength, A. Natural Monster, A++. Labyrinth of the Abyss, C. Noble Phantasm. Chaos Labyrinthos, EX. I choose the Noble Phantasm and I close the list. Asterio's skills were not more useful skills than harmful skills. Fortunately, I can choose the skills or Noble Phantasms individually. After yesterday's events, no skirmishes occurred between the two factions, but the fact that 2 servants were killed on the first day is still hard to believe. It seems that the master of Asterios, Karen, stayed with Rin Tosaka after the death of her servant. It seems that she did not expect to be the first person to lose from the Red faction. On the other hand, Ayaka Sagiu and her servant Richard the Lionheart joined along with Rin as well, who seemed to have decided to form an alliance. While Hassan of the Bloody Melody died without achieving anything, at least Shinji could return to his normal daily life, well, after the Holy Grail War had ended in order to ensure that no one would try to kill him. On the other hand, it seems Ruler, who I am certain was Saint Martha, did not interfere when I killed the Asterios. I wonder whether it was because of my counter-guardian or because I am a master in this war. On the other hand, Saint Martha probably will not interfere at all because she is like Ruler. She will not care about the Holy Grail because it is fake and not the original copy that Christ possessed. With the death of 1 servant in each faction, the 2 sides are now equal, which means that people who did not participate on the first day will feel the need to move, and if they do not, then I will. I tried to contact Livia Gelita Edelfelt to persuade her to enter into an alliance with us, but she refused. According to her words, it appears that she does not have any specific wish that she requests from the Grail, and the reason for her entering the Holy Grail War is to obtain fame and glory, and her way of doing it is by defeating all other masters and servants, and she seems to be confident in the superior strength that her servant, Ozymandias, possess. Because of this, I sent Arash and Heracles to defeat the Ozymandias, while he could become a strong ally, but I wouldn't let someone like him wander around just to try to kill me in the future. I even told Arash to use Stella if the need arises. On the other hand, I have sent Bazette, Arturia, and Ku Kulane after Richard the Lionheart and Amiya. While it would be better if I did take care of Amiya because he couldn't hurt me, maybe because of Alea, but I couldn't be in 2 different places. I also did a simple checkup on Iliasville last night, and I discovered that the problem of her short life isn't even accidental. It is only biological programming designed to make sure that she would die if her mission was not accomplished as the Lesser Grail, and it was easy to reverse it in addition to getting several ideas of how I can increase the number of magic circuits. Regardless of this, it appears that both Marisberry, Atram, and Kenneth who were hiding on an island have decided to intervene, and it appears that they were using the noble phantasm of the ship type to move. It was not difficult to identify. They were both Jason, Cersei, Charles Henry Sensen. There were even Gray, Qin Liangyu, Dr. Heartless and Faker too. I will take care of them, said Medea, who was sitting next to me. I looked at her. I know this is a personal matter, so it might not be wise to try to prevent her. It was her own revenge. Are you sure? I said to her while I grabbed her hand. I can go there. Please, Victor, you can trust me on this. I will kill them all. Medea said to me, not just for me, for both of us. And are you sure you can do this? You will have to fight 5 servants alone. I can join you. I just want you to watch me, just as I did yesterday. I'm strong, Victor, and you can count on me, just as this is something I should do, she told me with a smile, and also, if I am in danger, I will simply run away. Okay then, I said, after deep thought. Don't worry, she said, before she stood up and approached me, kissing me so deeply. Can I ask you for something? Of course, Medea, anything you want. After I return, can we try to get a child? I really want children with you. I looked at her with wide eyes, and it seems that she really meant this. Shouldn't we wait until you become human first? I know, but what difference will this make? She said to me while she kissed me again. Also, the experience won't hurt. Well then, Medea, but I don't think this war will last really long. Maybe it will end today or tomorrow, so it will not make a difference. Well, dear, I have people I need to kill, said Medea while she put on her mask, and she used Tropha to teleport toward the location of her targets. As for me, I sat in my seat again and kept watching, but at this moment I felt like someone was approaching me. It is a servant. Due to my role as a counter-guardian, I possess the same spiritual senses that most spiritual creatures possess, so it was not difficult to discover a servant approaching me. However, all my servants and other faction servants are busy fighting each other, which makes this person ruler, Saint Martha. While I don't know her purpose from coming here, but I just can't ignore it. I can sense you. You can get out of your place. I said I am a moderate voice inside the empty room. After a few seconds, a shape appeared from the corner of the room, a girl who had blue eyes and long purple hair, reaching below her waist, with a white, golden-frilled, short veil around her head. She wears a pair of blue earrings on each ear. A short, blue cloak draped over her shoulders is connected to a red collar, Saint Martha. I see, my presence concealment skill needs more training. I lifted my eyes off the crystal ball and I looked at Saint Martha directly. Good joke, but rulers don't have that skill. Oh, so you know what I am? She said consciously. Why don't you take a seat, Saint? I said while I pointed the seat next to me. She hesitated for a moment before sitting next to me, and I asked her, you break into my house while I'm completely alone, maybe you want to kill me, or worse, what prevents me from calling the police? No, Are you sure you are Saint? Your actions do not confirm this fact, I said, interrupting her. No, I wanted to discuss something with you, and the other servants may not be very friendly with my presence here, she said, annoyingly and a little angry. Okay then, you can talk, just listen. She looked at me and waited for her to speak. Well, as a start, despite me being ruler, the only thing that has qualified me for this class are my accomplishments in life and my lack of interest in the Holy Grail, so I have no interest in my duties on protecting the Grail apart from maintaining neutrality. Okay, but I don't know why this is going to be my problem. I told her briefly and went back to the crystal ball. Although I don't care about my duties as a servant, but as a saint, I cannot let the Holy Grail that can grant wishes fall into the wrong hands, and you are the only one, without being a servant, who managed to kill a servant before, so I am here to ask you several questions. Well, you can, I simply told her. First, what you are, I can feel you are a spiritual being similar to the servants, but you still have a body of flesh and blood. I am a counter guardian, a subtype of heroic spirits. The contract I made with the counter force is a little different, so I am not dead. I said to her simply, although it is rare for people like me to be present, it was not important hiding that from an unimportant character will disappear in several days. And what is your wish? Medea wants to be human, while I will be wish for a birthday. I told her while I smiled a little. She said something, but I didn't hear it because I was focusing too much on the crystal ball. As if time slowed down, Gilgamesh is here. I stared at the crystal ball now showing Gilgamesh, who was sitting on the throne above his 10,000 BC Indian aircraft, Vimana, while flying over the area where Medea was fighting Circe, Jason, Charles Henry Sensen and Qin Liangyu and Iskandar's shadow, plus 5 other magus. Thinking about this, the last time I could grab a thread on Gilgamesh is a few months ago. Gilgamesh must have been avoiding me effortlessly, perhaps he was using Shah Nakba and Muru to do this, after all he is most affected by Ngramanyu's death. Although he was not affected by the corruption, he must have felt his death because he touched the black mud before and received many benefits, so he will be surprised by the death of the god of all the world's evil. However, if he appears now in public, and he was hiding from me previously, this means either that he knows that his chance to not die is very high, or that Shah Nakba and Muru could not offer him one specific future, so he will rely on his own arrogance that no one can defeat him. Thanks God my origin is determination. I literally say fuck you to all future sight abilities. Saint, I think our conversation are now over. You can stay if you want this, or go, I don't really care. I said while I'm passing. The light covered my body and in a second and the doom armor appeared on my body. In previous years I had made several adjustments to it, such as adding 2 wings behind the armor in order to increase the flying speed of Medea's spell, as well as adjustments to reduce air bumps, and add a life support system. In short, I have converted the noble phantasm that Alea has given me into a mixture of technology and mystery. Of course it's still completely mystery and the tech parts are just simulation by Magecraft. Modern technology simply doesn't live up to Magecraft. Wait, you didn't. I used Tropha to instant teleport to the sky above the sea, more specifically, in front of Vimana several tens of meters away, while I could see the Medea fight down several kilometers down thanks to my clairvoyant. I boosted my armor with the Knight of Honor, making things like green energy veins appear on it. I started firing Gander shots at Vimana, and although there was no damage to the vehicle, Gilgamesh definitely noticed me and started evading the Gander shots while he also began firing laminated weapons towards me. I heard him say something about how dare you bother him, but I just ignored it. While my flight speed was not close to that of Vimana, I could easily calculate and elude the path of the laser bullets and his projectile weapons. While we were fighting, it was like throwing attacks in random places where none of us were able to hit the other. After some time I got tired of this, while I of course do not want him to die easily, but his vehicle is just too fast, fortunately. I have a solution to this problem. Sigma tau lambda eta tau omicron upsilon rho alpha nu omicron. A dense column of magical energy descended from the sky toward the earth in less than a second, while it hit the front part of the Vimana, while I deliberately did not hit the throne on which Gilgamesh sits, but the entire vehicle was thrown into the sea while it seemed to have been damaged. I smiled upon seeing this and waited several seconds before seeing that Vimana rise again, while the front part was damaged, but Gilgamesh was very angry and very wet. "Mongrel, how dare you!" Gilgamesh shouted angrily while at the same time hundreds of weapons, noble phantasms, started to appear from the area around him. He seemed to have passed his stupidity and decided to fight seriously, but... "It is not how I dare, Gilgamesh," I said quietly, but because the armor zooms in and changes my voice was heard in a big area. "The thing is," I said quietly, but Gilgamesh released all his weapons toward me, hundreds of weapons from the Babylon gate heading towards me at a speed of at least Mach 10. It was really nice to see the black night sky shining with golden lights. When only a few meters separated golden weapons from my tearing into parts, my perception of time slowed down, enabling me to analyze everything appropriately, including internal prana manipulation and complex math performance. Tropha. I used the magecraft that replicate the true magic that control teleportation to arrive in front of Gilgamesh, and I literally slapped him on the face with all my strength, enough to throw him from his throne towards the ship's floor. "Oh my god, this is really a bitch slap," I just said to further humiliate him. "Damn, I have to apologize to Med, Ishtar, Aphrodite, later. I just insulted them by likening you to them. Your servant caster killed Assassin of Red, Charles Henry Sensen. You gained 1 million EXP. You have reached level 133. You can choose one perk. Your servant caster killed Assassin of Red, Charles Henry Sensen. You can choose 2 skills and 1 noble phantasm. Your servant, Arash Kamanger, is dead. You have got 0 EXP. Because of your contract with Arash Kamanger, you can choose 2 skills and 1 noble phantasm. Your servant archer killed Rider of Black, Ozymandias. You gained 4 million EXP. You have reached level 134. Your servant archer killed Rider of Black, Ozymandias. You can choose 2 skills and 1 noble phantasm. I looked up the list curiously. Medea seemed to have killed an enemy member, while Arash seemed to have used Stella to beat Ozymandias. While Arash had been a good servant for a long time, sacrifices had to be made in order to win, plus I could summon him again after getting Heaven's Feel. I sent him with Heracles, so it seems that things went very badly. It seems that Arash was outside the temple in order to be able to use Stella. Thinking about this, it seems that there will be a new abyss on the other side of the city because of Stella. "Bastard," Gilgamesh said while I noticed that all the weapons he had previously thrown had disappeared. It seemed that he had brought them back to Gob. "Get off my ship." He tried to attack me again by launching several swords towards me, but I easily avoided them. While I wanted to kill him, but there is still one last benefit of it. I was pointing at him and my hands started glowing white. Pi Epsilon Iota Rho Omicron Pi Nu Omicron. This was an advanced sleep spell, because Gilgamesh possesses magic resistance just at the E rank, as he has no hope of resisting it. When Gilgamesh lost consciousness, the ship disappeared from beneath us, and I immediately jumped and grabbed Gilgamesh's body. I smiled and I was about to return to my palace when I received a mental call from Artoria. "Master, Lancer has been defeated and I'm now fighting 6 servants." Was Lancer defeated really easily? Lancer and his master fought well, but they were killed in the end. They could have killed 3 servants while I was busy fighting Archer of Red. It seems that Saber of Red can summon 7 servants, and that his speed is constantly increasing, and he seems to possess Avalon, which gives him a huge regeneration. I think I am losing. I am currently fighting against Saber and Archer and 4 additional servants. Archer can use Reality Marble that gives him endless weapons. I thought a little. It seemed I had become the last master of the Black faction, apart from Iliasville, that I didn't let her go with Berserker. I looked at my options. Artoria wouldn't want to kill either Rin or Ayaka, nor would she want to use any dirty tricks to win, just as I was surprised that she said Richard had Avalon. I have Avalon. Fortunately, I designed a spell for this, a spell to convert servants into altar servants. Although the Dark Grail has turned into a regular Lesser Grail, I can simulate its effects and improve it, a spell that only requires pre-contracting with the servant. Well, it seems that this war was not difficult or easy as expected, while every servant in my faction was killed, but I and Medea, in addition to Artoria, have survived. I will not lie, Artoria has made a plan in which no one of our faction or the other faction masters has to die, but I manipulated her plan a little by not providing enough information to her, and this is in order to ensure that apart from my faction masters, all their servants die. While Bazette was so injured that she seemed dead, I could have healed her and put her in a bed where she stayed asleep for a long time. The reason I did this was because the Holy Grail cannot fulfill an unlimited number of wishes, so this was my best bet. While Artoria Pendragon Altar is have less agility than regular Arturia, it compensates for this by increasing both strength, endurance, and mana, and also, unlike ordinary Artoria, Salter uses all of her capabilities and potential without any fear or concern for her enemies. Also, the fact that Salter could defeat both Archer Amiya and Richard the Lionheart was confirming this, although much of the city was destroyed, and of course, there were a few casualties, but the area that was destroyed was in the remote part of the city was destroyed 10 years ago, so there weren't many people there. Fortunately she was my servant, otherwise it was impossible to use the talisman that transformed it into a alter form, and unlike how Ingram Mainu uses it, Artoria will not undergo any major change in personality. According to Medea, it appears that after she managed to kill Charles Henry Sensen, she managed to use Rule Breaker to control Iskandar's shadow. While controlling the members of the other faction was useless because we would have to kill them in the end, Iskandar's shadow was not a servant in this Holy Grail war, so it is not really counted. And while Marisberry, Animusphere and Grey have survived, Atrum, Kenneth Il Meloy, Archibald and Dr. Heartless have had a worse fate with all the other servants. While I could of course go home on my own, I waited until Medea finished taking her revenge. I saw that she was really enjoying this. I cannot really blame her because I loved so much when I slapped Gilgamesh. I might do this again before I use his body, before Medea and me take Artoria Alter, who seems to have got Avalon, with us. It would have been strange if there were two Avalon. If Richard had owned him like his noble phantasm as a servant, then it wouldn't be strange. This immediately made me very cautious, and while Artoria Alter had taken it without permission, I did not mind because he was apart from me. And Grey, she can only use its full potential. While Medea can make limited immortal doses, it only works on living creatures. So after everything was over, Medea and I and Artoria Alter, as well as Iskandar's shadow, came home to me, with a bag I was putting Gilgamesh in. "What are you doing here?" I asked Martha, who was still in my house, while I was scratching the back of my head. "Who is this, dear?" Medea said while she held my arms. "I," said Martha, while a red came across her face. "I have no place to live. She is ruler, she's the judge." I briefly introduced it. Medea smiled, left my arms and headed towards Martha. "You can stay here." I looked at them while I unintentionally smiled. The war ended, so Martha will not continue without a proper source of prana, but... "Well, you guys know it's Christmas, don't you?" Martha said as she rubbed her cheek. "And?" Iskandar's shadow said while she was angry that she is here against her will. "Well, because I was here without anyone's approval, and because it was a happy occasion, I and that little girl prepared some food for us, all. I hope you wouldn't mind that." "Christmas?" Medea said. Maybe she does not know what Christmas is. "The birth of Christ," Artoria Alter said briefly. "But, you know that Christ was born in the spring, not winter, right? Christmas is the feast of pagan and Catholic religions before the advent of Christianity." I suddenly corrected them. "I know, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be celebrating, right?" Martha said. The end of the story. MC live happily after, got the 3 magic, married Medea, and after 9 months they got a child. Not after that Saint Martha confessed to him of her love, they got married. The hard one is Artoria, but they make love after 3 years from the war. They all immortals thanks to the immortality potions. The end. Grinning face. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.